voted with the mayor, or they agreed with him to change those plans. Nobody said anything else. Should not have been allowed, because it's not the mayor's decision. It's a council decision, it's a board of estimate decision, it's the people's decision. And so it was changed, and now we are $5 million short. Where are we going to find that money from? Is it on your backs? Well, I can tell you one thing, the city, with my vote, is not going to go out to bond $5 million to finish that project. What we will have to do is to do more with less. And so the remainder of the money that we have, we need to go back to the drawing board, and we need to finish that project with what we have. I cannot put that strain on the people of this city. $5 million additional funds, and that's just for Memorial Field. And then the city is looking to bond for another $9 million. What do you think it's going to do to your taxes? And I will not sit back and allow that to happen. But again, I have one vote of 3 votes on the Board of Estimate. I think I kind of finished most of the stuff that I wanted to talk about in terms of the Board of Estimate. And that's because a lot of people don't really know how it's done, the composition of that Board of Estimate. So if there are any other questions, please let me know. One thing, just let me touch base on one thing, and that's the garage. The garage is a city-owned garage. The land is not owned by the city, but the building is owned by the city. And I just wanted to let you know that if it were to be sold, and that's an if, or if it were to be leased, it's a city-owned property that the controller has control over all city-owned properties. Any building that's owned by the city, the controller is the person who has control over it. There's also a real estate committee that the controller sits on. And if it were to be sold or it were to be leased, it has to go to that real estate committee. Again, I only have one vote. The president of the city council sits on that committee. The assessor sits on that committee, and I sit on that committee. So there's one vote there. And so the real estate committee is in charge of all those properties, whereby if we decide to sell, okay, we vote on that. We look at the value of the property. We will take into consideration the market value, what are the taxes that are owed on that property from, let's say, if it was a property that we took from, and let's say an owner, a former owner, and we will take all of that into consideration to know what price we should be selling that property. And so sometimes we have properties that we put up for sale, that as soon as we're ready to sell it at a public auction, which is a...
Is anyone parking in the garage?
They're towing cars out of the garage.
Why? Ernie! Metro Fresh. Stop at Metro Fresh.
If the city has taken property for lack of payment of it, somebody lacks the payment of their taxes, and the city has taken their property, the first thing the city tries to do is to do a public auction, because that's the cleanest way, that's the fairest way to do it. We give everybody an option to come and publicly bid on that property. There are some times when I'm faced with the fact that properties should be removed because of who I know or of who you know, all right? I can remove your property. That's not my doing. Okay? I want you to know that. Because lots of people think that I have so many friends and I will remove their property. The fair thing is to do what is right across the board. And if you haven't paid your taxes and your property goes in foreclosure, whether you're the president or whether you're just an ordinary person in the city, the fair thing to do is to make sure that the law applies to you evenly. Yes?
If there are all these violations on the part of the mayor, obviously, where are the checks and balances in our government?
There are very few checks and balances in government today. Very few. And the only checks and balances I have that I can implement are if I do an audit, which I do pretty often, if I voice my concern at the Board of Estimate, and sometimes we get very tired of hearing me always voicing, but I keep fighting all the time. I've done that over the years, yes.
I've heard over the news several times that Mount Vernon, of all the other cities, pay highest taxes in the nation. Is that true?
Say that again,
I've heard over the news, the radio news, that